What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue our 2023 schedule preview and projected records for the 2023 college football season. We continue them with the North Carolina Tar Heels. Here's the schedule last year for the North Carolina Tar Heels. You look at who they played in the non-conference. They played against Florida A&M, Appalachian State, and Georgia State on the road. And then they played Notre Dame at home on September the 24th. So they didn't really have too tough of a non-conference schedule. Of course, they had to play Appalachian State on the road. That was a back-and-forth game. And then they had to play, of course, Notre Dame at home. They ended up losing that one on September the 24th. This North Carolina team went 9-5 overall last year, 9-3 in the regular season. They went to the ACC title game. And you look at who they also lost on the schedule. Like I just mentioned, I mentioned Notre Dame losing that one at home. That's a game they probably could have won. And then November was a really struggling time for North Carolina. They lost their last two games in the month of November. They lost to Georgia Tech at home and both NC State at home. So they lost their last two games of the regular season, and then they lost the ACC title game to Clemson. And they also lost their bowl game to Oregon. So they lost four straight to end out 2022. So, yeah, it was kind of an up-and-down year for North Carolina, but at least they made it to the ACC championship game. That was the good news about this team. But no divisions coming into the ACC this year. Will this be a step-back team for this North Carolina team? The good news, though, they'll return their top quarterback from last year, Drake May, obviously a top 10 quarterback and obviously a Heisman contender heading into this season, one of the top quarterbacks in the country last year. Well, let's look ahead to 2023. Here's the schedule for North Carolina heading into the 2023 season. And you look at who they'll get in the non-conference. They'll play South Carolina here at Charlotte. This one will be a really good kickoff game here on September the 2nd. Two great quarterbacks going at it here between Drake May and Spencer Rattler, top 10 quarterbacks as well. And then they'll play Appalachian State here once again on September the 9th. That was a Week 2 game last year, and it is a Week number 2 game once again this year. And this will be another interesting test here for North Carolina. Good news is they'll get this one at home. And then they'll play Minnesota here out of the Big Ten. That will be an interesting non-conference game there. And then they'll play Campbell here on November the 4th. So the non-conference schedule a little bit tougher than it was last year. Of course, South Carolina was probably the best 8-4 finishing type team last year. And then you have Appalachian State, obviously a team that was really close with North Carolina. Minnesota, I really don't know what they're going to look like. I mean, I know the roster is out there, and I don't know if they're going to be the same team as they were last year. This is a team that went 8-4 in the regular season last year. We don't really know what this team is going to look like. But let's go through the schedule now, go game by game. Again, no divisions in the ACC this season. So they'll start the season off against South Carolina here on September the 2nd. Like I just mentioned, two top 10 quarterbacks probably into the 2023 season, kicking things off in the college football season. And this game against South Carolina will be in Charlotte, so it will be a really good neutral site game to kick off the season. And then they'll play Appalachian State here on September the 9th. Just talked about this game being back and forth like it was last year. And then, of course, Minnesota here at home. So, yeah, you played your three non-conference games to begin the year. And this will be a tough three-game non-conference schedule to begin the month of September. South Carolina in Charlotte. And the good news is you get Appalachian State and both Minnesota at home. That's the good news there. And then they'll play Pittsburgh here on the road to open up ACC play. It'll be an interesting road test there for North Carolina. They'll get a bye week after that game, and then they'll play Syracuse here on October the 7th, a Syracuse team that was pretty decent last year. Maybe this could be a really good matchup here. And then they'll play Miami here on October the 14th. Then they'll play Virginia here on October the 21st. So you get three straight home games here for North Carolina to begin out the month of October. Yes, they'll get a bye week before playing that Syracuse game, and then they'll play Miami here, a Miami team that should be better than they were last year. And then Virginia wasn't a good team last year, so they'll get three home games here in a row. And then they'll play on the road at Georgia Tech, a revenge game here for North Carolina. This game right here is a revenge game, like I just mentioned. Georgia Tech beat them last year, and this one will be on the road this time. And then they'll get to the month of November. They'll play Campbell here on November the 4th. Then they'll play against rival Duke here on November the 11th. What a game this will be. Duke, obviously, one of the most surprised teams from last year. They return a really good, decent amount of production coming into this season. So we're starting to see what the rosters are going to look like now as the rosters came out yesterday and what returning players were coming back as well. And then North Carolina's going to end things out here with 2 straight back-to-back road games here, on the road at Clemson and then on the road at NC State. And this will be a tough back-to-back here for North Carolina heading into the 2023 college football season. And they'll get Clemson on the road this year. Of course, they didn't play them last year. There were still divisions from the divisions last year. That will be a tough test. Clemson, obviously, we don't really know what the offense is going to look like just yet, but this will be a tough test here on the road at Clemson. And then they'll play NC State, a rival game. You just never know what can happen. NC State does lose quite a bit of production from last year. Of course, Devin Leary's gone. He transferred away. So this will be an interesting game here. It's obviously another revenge game here for North Carolina. They lost to NC State at home last year. Could they beat them this year on the road on November the 25th? So that's the schedule there for North Carolina. If you look at this schedule here, tough back-to-back road games with Clemson and NC State. Like I said, a non-conference schedule, a little bit tough for North Carolina this year. Of course, they have to play South Carolina, Appalachian State, and Minnesota in the first 3 weeks of the college football season. That will be a tough one there. But I think the schedule kind of sets up a little bit nicely for North Carolina to have a really good shot to maybe win the ACC this year and also maybe make it to the ACC title game once again. Let's now get to the projection here for this North Carolina team. This is the scale I pretty much use for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, pretty much games where North Carolina has no chance of winning. 20% games, there'll be about a couple of touchdowns of an underdog at 20% in the orange. 40% in the yellow, there'll be about a touchdown of an underdog. 50-50 games, they'll pretty much stay in the white. Games where I think they can go either way. 60% games in the purple. These are games where North Carolina is going to be favored by about a touchdown. 80% in the blue, games where they'll be favored by about a couple touchdowns. And then the 90% games, these are games where North Carolina is going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. And that's what we always start with. We're going to start with the green games here for North Carolina in the 90% category. And I got 2 of those on the schedule with Appalachian State and Campbell here. This will be, I think Appalachian State will be about 90% because of how the game went last year. This is a game that I probably could have put in the blue, but as of right now, I got to put this one in the green because it's really too early to tell. Maybe it switches around to about a touchdown or maybe a couple touchdowns of a game perhaps, but as of right now, I think North Carolina is clearly a favorite heading into this game. And then Campbell here, I think they have no business of losing that game there on November the 4th. So I think both of these games, North Carolina will be big favorites in. Now we go to the games where North Carolina is going to be favored by about a couple touchdowns in the blue. And I got 2 of those once again on the schedule. I got Syracuse and Virginia. Syracuse, I probably could have put that one in the purple. If this was a road game for North Carolina, I probably could have put it in the purple. But based off of where they were last year, I know Syracuse is a decent team, but with home field advantage, I think North Carolina is clearly going to be about a couple touchdowns of advantage. And Virginia here, obviously not a good team last year, but this is another game I probably could have put in the green, but it's an ACC matchup. I got to put it in the blue. And like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year as well. That's why I think both of these games are in the blue. And I think North Carolina, though, they'll be clearly a couple touchdowns of favorites here in both of these games. We go to the games now where North Carolina is going to be favored by about a touchdown in the 60% category. And I got 3 of those on the schedule. I got Minnesota here, then Pittsburgh on the road, and then Georgia Tech on the road. Minnesota does lose quite a bit of production from last year. I think this is why North Carolina will be favored in the purple as of right now. But I could switch it over to a 50-50 game probably when I do my predictions in the month of May. Pittsburgh, obviously, they lose a ton of production. I don't know what this Pittsburgh team is going to look like this year, but this will be a road game. That's why I got to put it in the purple. Georgia Tech, obviously, I know they beat North Carolina last year. But I think I'm going to put this one here in the purple. I think Georgia Tech still has a long way to go before they compete in the ACC conference. And I think they can make this game interesting, though. You kind of don't want to sleep on that game a little bit. Could be a little bit of a trap game for North Carolina. But I think the trap game on this schedule will be probably the Duke game on November the 11th. But as of right now, I'm going to put North Carolina as a favorite in that one against Georgia Tech on October the 28th. And I think these are games where North Carolina will be favored by about a touchdown. All right, how about the games where North Carolina is going to be an underdog in? I don't have any red or orange games on here, but I do have a yellow game on the schedule. That's on the road at Clemson. I think there'll be an underdog in this one on November the 18th on the road at Clemson, just because it's a tough place to play. I think, from where Clemson was last year, they beat them in the ACC title game as well. And I think North Carolina would just be a little bit of a touchdown underdog in this game. Not saying they don't have a chance to win it. I think they do have a really good shot to win this game on the road. But as of right now, I got Clemson favored in this game. It could switch around, though. Like I said, when we get to the month of November, that's when the teams really start to get better. And I think I could switch this one to a 50-50 game by the time we get into this matchup. So I think North Carolina, as of right now, will be an underdog, and that's the only underdog game I see North Carolina being an underdog in. And the rest of the games here on the schedule, South Carolina and Charlotte, Miami at home, Duke at home, and then NC State on the road. I think all of these are clearly 50-50 games, games where they can go either way. South Carolina is a neutral site game, so that's why I have to put it in the 50-50 game category. Like I said, it's going to be a really good back-and-forth game to open up the season. Then Miami here on October the 14th. This is a game that I probably could have put North Carolina in the purple in, but as of right now, I'm going to put it as a 50-50 game because Miami does return really good amount of production from last year, and they should be a better team than they were last year. And then Duke, obviously a rival game here. You never know what can happen. And then NC State here, same thing with Duke, a rival game. You never know what can happen as well. So I think all these games are pretty much 50-50 games. All right, now let's get to my projected record here. This is not simply a prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule. So if you look at the games that North Carolina is favored in and also the games that are 50-50 games, and you count the underdog game against Clemson. Before we start, though, how many games do I see them winning out of those 50-50 games? I see them winning 2 out of those 4 games. So when you look at the projection here and also the schedule, the overall projected record for this North Carolina team in 2023 comes out to be 9-3 for North Carolina in 2023. So the same record as last year at 9-3, but, that's my projection as of right now. It could probably drop to about 8-4, probably up to 10-2. You never know, but I could probably put them higher. Like I said, I don't do my predictions until about the month of May, so it's going to be a little bit while before we do those predictions. I think mid-case scenario for this North Carolina team, like I said, would be 9-3. I think best-case scenario for this team would be, as of right now, 10-2, and then worst-case scenario would be probably 8-4. But as of right now, the overall projected record for this North Carolina team is 9-3. Let me guys know what you think about this North Carolina team down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.